Right, we're going to jump right into this haircut tutorial. I put my one guard on closed. He likes his hair pretty low. Cut it all down evenly. Now I use my trimmers that are my bulk removers, and they're set for sensitive areas so they don't cut super bald. Just removing all the hair there as low as I could get it with my trimmers. And I tend to clean up the sides of the face too at the same time. And using foil shavers, be sure not to go too close to that line or else you'll have trouble. You may have trouble getting that line out. So now I have my lever all the way open and I'm establishing my second area. Now I close the lever to the halfway point and I go about 3/4 of the way into that area. And I close it all the way. You can completely remove that line if you have zero gap clipper blades. But you have to be careful you don't whelp up your clients and that they're not too sharp. So now with my one guard lever all the way open, I'm flicking off the shape of the head, trying not to bring the taper up too high. Getting the even area all the way across. Right now I have the half guard. I start with the lever 3/4 of the way open. I go about 3/4 of the way into that one guard area. I close the lever to the halfway point. I'll drop down to the halfway mark roughly in that one guard area. And I'll close the lever all the way and get that line out as good as I can. Right now I have my 1.5 guard on, lever all the way open. It's barely cutting anything, so I'm closing it halfway. Making sure I'm getting a good idea which direction the hair is growing in, because you have to approach it differently. So with the lever all the way closed, I'm attempting to connect the one guard area to the 1.5 guard. Put my one guard back on and just removing any of that bulk above my blend. And you'll see he has some lighter spots around his perennial ridge. That's common amongst people with waves. If he wore his hair a little bit longer, his waves would be more defined and that would be covered up. But, you know, people don't always want their hair real long. That's hard to maintain for a working guy. So with the one guard closed, I went around the ear to make sure that there's no strays for when I come back in for the lineup. Right, again, my bulk remover trimmers, establishing a nice clean area on the back of the nape. I don't typically use my foil shavers when doing the back taper. Just they're very prone to ingrown hairs. It's just not needed. So again, lever all the way open and making my second area for my blend. You see I do it in the same order on the back and the sides of the haircut. I always do my tapers the same way. Right, you see I'm checking out, he's got some different direction of hair growth. He has a swirl back here, so I'll have to approach it at different angles so that I'm cutting all the hair in the same direction, which is against the grain in this case. Right, so I close the lever halfway, go halfway into that area, and close it all the way, get that line all the way out. Again, I'm throwing on my one guard lever all the way open. Being sure to flick out whenever I'm blending. When you're making areas and when you're blending, you need to always flick out off of the shape of the head so that you're not continuing to stretch the blend up higher than you want. You see his hair grows inwards, so I had to go outwards when I was cutting it. That way it's cutting against the grain again. And just combing hair into position, making sure my blend is coming together how I think. I'm going over the ear with the one guard closed. Right, the 1.5 guard. I start with the lever all the way open. And this length will take me into the top of the hair length. And I'll close the lever halfway. And I'll go just above that one guard area line. And I'll close it all the way and flick out right on that line. Then we move on to our half guard with the lever 3/4 of the way open. And we go about 3/4 of the way into that one guard area. I'm gonna run through the lever positions just on the left side of his rear taper. So now I drop down to the mark in between the halfway mark and the quarter mark on your lever, and I'll go about halfway into that area. Then I'll close the lever all the way and connect those areas completely. Now I just did one side and then the other because it makes it easier while I'm filming. So now I got to do the same thing, but remember he has that swirl in the back, so I'm going to have to flip my clippers upside down to make sure that the blend is even across. See his hair grows inwards towards the center. All right, now I like to use my razor comb. This will take some of the darkness out in the shadows without removing too much length, which can happen sometimes using your clippers. This is somewhat like blending shears because it's not cutting every hair, it's cutting some of the hairs. So you can switch between the side with the short teeth or the long teeth to cut as needed. And now on my other side of the taper, I'm just doing the same thing. Cleaning up the facial hair while I got my trimmers out. And you'll see with my left hand, I'll hold the skin in place so that the clippers don't stretch or pull it. Just all around comfort for the client. And it makes your clippers cut more efficiently. I'm gonna run through the same, cycling through my lever positions that I did on the back and the other side here, just running through it real quick. But you see I comb right after I make a few passes with my clipper every time because you want to reposition the hair. On this client, this side of his head, the hair grows towards the back of his head in the taper. So if you're brushing or combing the hair downwards, it's always going to show you a line of demarcation because the hair is not laying down in the right pattern. Checking the taper from the front like this can really expose lines of demarcation as well. You always want to look at your haircuts from different angles. And I'm just about done completing the basic blend. When you go through your areas, you're not trying to take all day doing it. You're trying to move through it pretty fast. And then you're going to correct a lot of stuff after you lay the hair down at the end of the haircut because that could create more shadows and lines of demarcation as well. So you run right through the same order every time and you'll get faster and faster cutting and still cutting as good. So now I take a hard bristle brush and I follow the wave pattern, laying the hair down. Now I use a soft bristle brush to do the same thing. Make sure I get that crown. Right, so now I'm putting in a gel cream, or you could use a foam. It's meant to lay down the hair. Again, you brush it, and I follow the brush with my hand and just kind of pack down the hair. Give it that real laid down look. And securing the do-rag on his head, trying to minimize the wrinkles on these straps because that's going to put divots in the client's hair and scalp and affect the way that your haircut looks. All right, once it's tied, I hold the front and I pull down on the back, and that tightens it up around the crown area. And I blow dried it for longer than I showed. After removing that do-rag, I'll wipe his line up with 91% alcohol that's on a neck strip. The texture of the neck strip exfoliates the skin and strips everything out of your way and prepares you for your holding spray. Always be aware that you're cutting a person's hair, so you got to accommodate their comforts. I got to cover his ear, I got to cover his face when I'm spraying these things because who the hell wants holding spray right on their face, you know? Small things on every client. This is what keeps people coming back. They know that you're thorough about what you do and that you're aware of their comfort. And really just showing them that they are priority number one during the appointment that they schedule with you. All right, so I'm starting here over the ear. I normally start in the back and then work my way over the ear, but every now and then I switch it up for the video just because of the angle of the tripod and everything. These are my crispy liners. It's tap and go. You don't have to really press with those. And then to get the bottom of the nape, I use my bulk remover trimmers so that it doesn't whelp them up, doesn't irritate the skin or potentially give them ingrown hairs. I use that to hit all the extra hairs outside the line as well over the ear. And it was a little bit puffy over his ear, so we used the short teeth side of my razor comb and knocked that down before doing the same thing with the crispy liners and then my bulk remover liners, sensitive skin area. You don't want to go too high when establishing this, but it is vital that it shows all the way over the ear. All right, so I always start on the temple line that is the furthest back because we have to match the other side to that anyway for it to be even. And I look at it and I see where it references down on the eye or the eyebrow. Now I get an idea of where it's going to go on this side. As long as it's not pushing it back too much, I just go right ahead and match up the other temple side. After the temple, I move to the center of the client's head. And now I look at which side is up higher naturally. I notice that my client's right-hand side is the naturally higher side. And I'm making sure I'm not even going very far into it. I'm just going enough to establish a line. When we zoom in on this line, you'll notice that there's a section of his front line that's on his right side that it's a little bit further back right before the corner. And what we're going to do is try to minimize that. But you don't want to push the other side and matching that flaw. You want to try to minimize that, what's looked at as a flaw on the front line. And you'll see it again when we zoom in. But I matched the other side the best I could without pushing the line back too far. We want to give the illusion that it looks the same. It's a little puffy in the front, so I use my razor comb to knock that down. I know you see how shiny the client's forehead is. That's the holding spray. And I'm going to be removing that with a hot washcloth towards the end of the client's haircut. And now I'm beginning on his goatee, detailing it. These are my sensitive area trimmers. I normally start on the lip line, and then I do the top line of the mustache. Then I usually go to the other side and do the same. Again, I'm all about the client's comfort. You can't just be rough with these trimmers in sensitive areas especially. You want to always keep in mind that you could whelp up the skin. And in my opinion, that really ruins the ending result. It takes away from everything you did when there's like a whelp or there's a cut. Now that can happen from time to time regardless, but it's important that we take the steps and precautions to minimize the chances. And I'm just making sure that the other side is matched to this first side that we did. Making sure the angles are the same, that the bars are the equal width. Making sure that the line is just as far from the corner of his mouth on both sides. You want to have reference points on the client's features because it's typically even on both sides. And you want the haircut or facial hair to be balanced on their natural features. So you use reference points as guidelines, as a template. You do one side, then you use a reference point, and you match the other with the same reference point. This really ensures and very precise haircut and can allow you to move with more confidence because you know that you're relying on things that really work. These reference points have been proven to work. Just fine-tuning this front line before I get into the razor line, making sure that it's straight as possible. Now I'm just bringing up the client's left side to match his higher side. Doing it just a little bit at a time. I don't want to take too much. You can't put hair back. All right, we are ready for a razor line to lock in this established lineup we already got. I tend to start on temple lines. I start in the corner. Having a more exposed blade can sometimes be helpful in those corners, but it could still be done with any kind of razor you choose. I switched over to using this shave solution instead of gel, and I had been nicking people a lot less, and I like the way it makes the skin look after. It seems very conditioned. So remember, I removed all that holding spray along his lineup. I went over the taper area with the hot towel as well, just to kind of soothe any irritation. This is a 50-50 witch hazel and 70% isopropyl alcohol mix in a nano mister. And to dry out the hair and face and skin, I have baby powder on a washcloth. And now I'll brush the hair over the line as well to help dry it out, making sure that it's laid down. Now I hit the strays. These strays are what take away from the clarity of your waves or just the clarity of the haircut. The little distractions from all your work. Alright, so now I'm going to apply pomade, going in the direction of his hair growth, of course, and I follow the brush with my hand because we're trying to lay this hair down. And now we're going to lock it into position with our do-rag again. Really making sure that there's no wrinkles so that it looks as smooth as possible. And a quick round of heat. In the meantime, I touch up some different areas on his facial hair. I razor lined his facial hair as well. I just did not show it. I'm just prepping him now to apply my semi-permanent dye in my airbrush gun. And I notice a lot of people when they do this or use enhancements on the facial hair, they don't do the mustache. And I'm not sure if you guys think that nobody can notice that, but it's like super noticeable. So if you're going to use enhancements or dye on your client's face, you got to use it on the whole line. You can't do the whole beard and then forget the inside of the chin area. You could definitely tell. It's a drastic difference. So with that being said, you still don't want to apply too much, though. You want to make sure that this can fool the eye into someone believing it's actually natural. I tend to lean towards semi-permanent dye for the beard, facial hair, because it stains the skin somewhat and can sometimes survive a shampoo and just dye the hairs that are actually lighter in the mustache and beard area and just give you a more prominent line. Now I'm going to frame my work with a tan barber pencil. You don't use white on brown skin. It's too big of a contrast. It just looks weird. And it never wipes all the way off. The idea is to use these things to enhance your haircut, not make the haircut, enhance it. But also, it's supposed to be subtle. You want people to be questioning like, damn, was that enhanced? Is that dyed? Or is this shit just naturally like that? So I applied some oil onto his facial hair after it moisturized it. And then I wiped away a good amount of that pencil, and then I used my soft brush, wiped away some more, and then I used the washcloth. It's pretty much gone, but there's just a little bit of a remnants of it right on the line, enough to create a greater contrast. The bigger difference in the color of the hair and the skin, that's the greater contrast, and it pops from further away. So if you want to play on that throughout your haircuts, you want to use the idea of contrast all throughout your haircut. It makes it pop, makes it stand out from across the room. Right, front view for the taper, just to double check. I'm just making sure that my front line is perfect. I enhance the temple lines first, and then I readjust my eyes and I look at my front line again, comb over the strays. Because remember, it's super important to have a solid haircut underneath these dyes and enhancements. I've had a lot of new clients tell me that they've been to barbers that took 10 minutes on the haircut and 30 minutes on the enhancements. You don't want to be that guy unless you plan on getting into real estate or something and not being a barber. Right, so again, I did my temple lines first. Then I begin in the middle, go to his highest side. Now, you see there's a hump in his lineup right before the corner there. It's naturally like that. And I tried to match the other side as good as I could without pushing it back too much. But what I did with the enhancement is I went like 1/100th of an inch, like a hair outside of that hump in this front line. And it just subtly brought it down just a little bit. And then I make sure that I'm going back as far as I need to with the enhancement on the other side. You want to compensate for these natural discrepancies in the front line. And now we have again the tan barber pencil. I'm also going to keep that area right there in mind when I'm running that pencil across there, being extra careful not to go any further back than needed. And bring it forward somewhat in hopes to fool the eye. Now I apply a hair serum or oil. And you see I kind of intentionally smeared over the areas I used the barber pencil. I use the barber pencil right on the curve of the ear where it connects with the taper as well, and that helps it pop. Now I use my soft bristle brush, and I'm brushing that oil over the lineup, which is lightening up that barber pencil. Now I follow it with my washcloth, and it removes it just about to the point where I want it to be. Right, and now the witch hazel and alcohol lightens it up as well, the barber pencil. Now that the hair is all dry, after that, I'm combing the hairs over the existing line. I'm gonna run over them one more time. You see I'm steadying my index finger on my trimmers. I have my ring finger on the client's brow. This is allowing me to steady myself. Sometimes you have shaky hands. Sometimes you just really want to ensure that you got a solid grip and that your line is gonna be as sharp as possible. You'll see me do that a lot of times. Just gives me balance. You know, we're drinking coffee all day. You might smoke. You got some shaky hands, so you learn little tricks to steady yourself. Now, you hope to have all your flaws removed from your blend before the enhancements are applied, but sometimes those enhancements make a flaw stand out, and that's what happened in this case. So I'm just starting out with a length that's higher than I know it needs, and then I drop it down as needed and remove the dark spots in the blend. And now to give that haircut the finished look, I run over the lineup with the razor. Produces a nice ash line combined with that tiny bit of the remnants of the barber pencil. Now I'm going to lean them back to get the front line. You can see by going over the lineup as many times as I do how sharp that line actually comes out. How neat your haircut looks. How few strays are poking off the front line from this side angle. All right, so after I hit it with the razor line, I brush the hairs over again. I don't want my client going home and he disrupts his hair with it, whether he brushes it with his hand or with actual brush, and the lineup not look correct. He's a walking billboard. I got to do what it takes to make sure that it looks good. So dark spot jumped out at me. I'm using my razor comb to lighten it up without taking too much. Making sure that corner is hidden. It's all about angles in this game. Sharp corners. Now, if you're a beginning barber that wants to try to get into this more of advanced style of haircutting, do it on one client only that you're close with or a family member so that you're comfortable with them and you can try new things, get good at it. Don't do it on every client in the beginning. You're going to be in there taking too long on haircuts. This is something in the beginning that you'll master on one client. All right, so I'm fine-tuning it from that front view. Really helps out with the front tapers. Right, the hair goes towards the back of the head right there on his temple. So we'll brush it into place, and there you go. Blends good. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel, Tony Miami the Barber. I'll be posting a lot more coming soon.